Hi everyone, it's Ian Robb, and today I'm going to do a match review of Game 2 between me and Rowan Stabenow at Milwaukee Regional. So this is a Gardevoir Jellicent mirror match, which is a really weird matchup where the main objective is all about setting up your Jellicent EX and preventing your opponent from having theirs in play, as most of the time, if that happens, you'll almost always win. So I'm the player going first, which is something that is quite important to talk about with how I'm going to play this. So, since I'm going first, and since I know that Rowan plays Air Balloon, I know that Rowan's going to go for a turn 1 item lock most of the time with Frillish. What this means is that I want to attempt to respond to this by going with a energy attachment on my Monkey Dory, along with, hopefully next turn, attaching again using Mind Bend. What this does is it makes it so that you can go Adrenaline Brain from the 20 that the Frillish does to you, and then item lock them. And then get a knockout. So here I'm just going to try to also get a turn 2 Jellicent, as that is usually just your best choice for setting up. As you see in my hand, I have Jellicent, so I'm going to get Frillish very aggressively, and I had the turn 1 attachment, which sets me up perfectly for creating a confusion. And if I miss, as in maybe it's a Iono, I don't find what I want, I can still just use promoting Jellicent and passing, which is pretty good too in the mirror match, as your opponent has very little ways to find Jellicent. Usually it is just a one copy of Jellicent in their deck, and that is quite difficult to hit the Jellicent ever. It's the same thing with finding Gardevoir EX is quite difficult to find in the mirror, as you just cannot really have many outs if your opponent is using Frillish or Jellicent. So it's very important to preemptively Ultra Ball for them, to Evo into them, and to just overall be setting up game plans to beat your opponent having the card. So here, my turn 1, as I talked about before, exactly what I wanted. I have turn 2 Jellicent, and I can handle a turn 1 Frillish attack with Mind Bend, which is quite good for me here. So on Rowan's side, he's trying to decide what the best way is to set up. With Secret Box already in hand, he has to decide what is the best way to go. Here, since he's getting the Air Balloon, I know he's either going to be using Secret Box, or he's just going to go for a Frillish attack, which I am, to be honest, quite happy if he goes for a Frillish attack, as it means that I can just find a Dark Energy, and the game is quite difficult for Rowan to win unless he gets a Screamtail response onto my one Ralts if I do not find a second copy of the card. So here Rowan's trying to figure out how he wants to go for a setup, and here he just decides to go for hopefully a turn 2 Gardevoir plus Lily's next turn, because he's assuming I'm not going to get item lock off, is my assumption with the play that he made, getting Rare Candy, and also let's say if I do, then he's going to thin it out. So that's why he got the card. And here, so I go for item lock and take the risk of, if I find Dark Energy, he is quite far behind. So here I decided not to use Artisan, as I felt that the Iono I had, I want to be able to shuffle my deck, and thinning the card was quite poor beforehand. So here, I get absolutely nothing. I'd be happy with Psychic, I'd be happy with Dark, or just really anything, even just a Corellia, because then I can set up an attack with Jellicent the following turn. But now I'm in a quite awkward position due to missing energy attachment. It means I'm just going to have to promote Jellicent and hope that Rowan just has a really slow start. I feel quite decent though, because while yes, I am going to be a little bit behind, it's going to be quite hard for Rowan to find Jellicent, but he already has it in hand, so it is a quite bad situation for me now, as Rowan is quite far ahead on this board, as he's the first person to get to attack. Here makes an interesting choice to go for Research. I think that Research is better here due to I did nothing after Iono. I just used Artisan, so he knows my hand is probably not very strong, so that's why he goes for this play of just using the Research. I think one thing to note with this last gameplay is we both know we don't play Iron Bundle, each other's decks, so that's why we play this way. If we knew that the opponent did play Iron Bundle, the game changes a little bit with the Jellicent gameplay. I just wanted to mention that before getting in more into the game. So here, I'm really just hoping for a Dark Energy and a Corellia, as that will allow me to just set up my board and get a attack the following turn, and eventually I think my game plan is, with now Rowan so far ahead, is to just try and set up a Mind Bend a few turns down the road on his Jellicent so that I can get the opportunity to maybe break the item lock. So here I find Dark, but I find nothing else, which is quite awful. So here, all I can really do, since I found Dark and nothing else, is just put damage on his active and pass. So here for Rowan, he doesn't really need to do much. He's so far ahead in this position that his hand has no draw supporter. He's going to sit here and attack me, and eventually what will happen is he'll just knock out my Jellicent, and I will basically just lose due to how he just has so much more than me. And now I have to try to start figuring out, how do I ever get out of this? My hand is completely dead. I have nothing going well for me on board. So how do I win? So here, what I'm trying to figure out is, how do I set up a few turns from now to win the game? So I'm expecting my Jellicent to be getting knocked out 2 turns from now, and on that turn I need to figure out how to win. And here I decided that I need to start setting up for Mind Bend. That's why I attached Psychic to their Monkey, because I'm thinking that I need to have the energy actually split so that I no longer need to be concerned about anything like, let's say he goes like Screamtail Knockout or something. I could see it being technically incorrect to split, but my thought process was also, if he finds a copy of if I find a copy of Psychic, then it's just better for me to do it like this. So here Rowan decides not to play the Lilies in his hand, which I think is interesting. I think the reasoning for this is that he just wants to try to get all the Psychics out of his deck, and then he wants to play the Lilies, is how I would think, which I think makes a lot of sense, since under item lock you really want to make sure you just get energy attachment every single turn, so it's a really massive risk to miss energy attachments. Here he starts spreading damage, as my active's already guaranteed knockout, and I already have damage on my bench, so that's why I decided to go for that. I do disagree with not playing Lilies here, but I think it's a very little thing. He's so far ahead, I don't think it's a really big deal, but it's just something to note. So here, I'm now going for that Mind Bend line, where I want to just use Mind Bend, move damage, and hope that Rowan either retreats out of it or flips 1 or 2 tails in a row, as that's, I think, my only real out to winning. So here, my hand is way too good, where I really just am unable to use Research, because if I use Research, then I am dumping Rare Candy and everything else, like my Devo, which is really what I'm playing for, because in my head I'm thinking my game plan is get rid of the Jellicent and then just go for a knockout onto the Gardevoir with a Gardevoir swing plus Devo line later on in the game. So I don't really want to discard my Devo, because I'm really thinking about, how do I create a very massive comeback. And my thought process is that Rowan's going to be guaranteed getting to 1 prize, just knockout active plus Screamtail Fez. So I need to set up a line where I can just find a way to punch the Gardevoir and then win. So here Rowan's just trying to thin his deck out, make sure to start playing around things. He gets the Ralts down, as now he can just Ultra Ball for Corellia at some point, and just helps in the deck and plays around things like Devo that I was just discussing. So here, just thinking a little bit with it. Then he's going to go for clearing damage on my board, because I cannot use Gardevoir the following turn, so it's good just to clear damage. Here, this is actually very good for me. He flips tails, as if he flips heads, I really do not see a way for me to win the game, because I need to be able to pile a lot more damage onto his active. So here I am getting my attachment down, because I'm just expecting, again, I will have to keep using Mind Bend for a little bit, and I'm trying to think, do I want to use Research now? And I side against it, as I feel I still need to have access to the cards in my hand if I ever want to win this game. Now Rowan has a really interesting situation where he can go for a attack with Jellicent here, where he can, if he flips heads, he basically just wins the game. But if he flips tails, he's in a really bad spot, because the thing is that I can knock out his Jellicent, and we're tied on prizes, and then he is down a lot of just time resources. That makes sense, where he's thinned a lot. He just won't be able to really use Counter Catcher effectively, so he decides to not take a risk with the Mind Bend, and instead decides to go for Frillish, which I think is quite interesting. I'm a little unsure if I think the play is right or wrong, but it's definitely one that So that's a pretty decent board for him. Alright, so here, I'm still item locked, but I have access to Devo, which is, now I'm getting rewarded for not doing anything for a few turns, as now I can just set up a Devo play, and then the following turn, I can just use my Rare Candy in hand and set up my board. So here, I touch Bravery Charm, Defense, Serendipity, as I'm thinking about that Screamtail turn that I discussed earlier for a long time, and I really want to make sure that I cannot really just lose that Screamtail unless he has access to Bravery Charm, which can be quite difficult for these new versions of Gardevoir to have access to. So here, I was going to set up a play where I can knock out both the Jellicent and Frillish, which means that the way for Rowan to item lock me is through Frillish, and that's just not really a good play on this board state, as that would make things be a little awkward. It just doesn't really help him all that much. So here, Rowan's goal really all he needs to do is just start getting monkey control. If he has monkey control from this point forward, it's really hard for him to lose, as it's still 4-4. So monkey control is really the main objective at this point, as on the 4-4 point of the game, item lock is way less relevant due to how both players have developed a lot of monkeys, so you want to be doing more damage. Here he's still prioritizing monkey damage a little bit, but I'm a little unsure if that is right or wrong. Excuse me, he's not really prioritizing, as he did not bench third monkey. So I still go for item lock, which I'm a little unsure if that's right or wrong, just due to how he's very far ahead on the board, so it's a little bit interesting. So here he decides to continue the item lock, as he feels, I think it's the best way for him to continue staying ahead on the board. Where now he can just go Jellicent the following turn is, I think, his logic, which I think is a little bit interesting. I don't fully agree with it. I think this is quite weak if I have access to anything. I just took 2 prizes, so I think that the odds of me having something is quite decent. So now I am going to be forced to do something. I can no longer just sit here like I did previously, because I no longer can rely on Mind Bend this turn, which is what I would really need to do this to stall for time. And also, if he ever gets down third monkey, I kind of just lose if I go for that line. So here I'm just thinking about, like, how do I win from this board state? Things I think are quite bad, and what I decided to do here is I will end up playing that research, as I was, again, just artisan checking resources, make sure I remember correctly what I have left, because I have a lot of stuff I'd have to discard my research that I have to now, unfortunately, play due to the current board state. So here, bench Frillish. I'm not really sure the reason here. I think that my thought is, oh, maybe I need to go like Jellicent lock at this point. Maybe later down the road, since I prized my third monkey, I cannot really go for that line, as third monkey would actually be quite awful for Rowan in this spot. But I think that my thought here is just, oh, I might need item lock, and I can't really get punished by counter catcher or anything. So that's why I decided to go for this line, which is just Mind Bend. And now, like, I'm actually like pretty decent to Jellicent. Like, it's not a big deal. If he goes for Jellicent knockout, I can just go knockout with Gardevoir. The only problem with this is I can't develop more monkeys. It's just something that I don't really like love for me here. But I think this is totally fine. I think that if I had access to a Psychic, it would be just correct to promote my Frillish, as I just don't really at this point care about Frillish, and I think that at this point what I need to do is really just prioritize having access to as many monkeys as possible under item lock, because what I need to do is make sure if Rowan ever gets like triple monkey, I can still have a monkey in play, because he would just knock out this one. And if I go knockout on his Jellicent here, he can just go counter catcher KO monkey. So I'm actually not fully convinced that this play I made was correct to go for Mind Bend setup damage. Here the play he's going for is just set up Devo maybe on the following turn. Excuse me, he's down Devo, so that's my first thought here was, oh, he's playing 6 on there, sub Devo. And then I checked his discard, and I'm like, wait, no, he's down Devo. That's just not really an out. Here, I didn't Artisan before Fez because I knew Gardevoir was not in my previous hand, and if I remember correctly, there's 2 in deck, so that's why I play it this way. My objective at this point in the game is I'm trying to figure out how do I really win from this point if he's knocks with Gardevoir, because he goes to 1 prize, and then he Scream Tail KOs another card. So this is a spot that is a little bit awkward for me, because while yes, like I'll get a knockout and go up to 2 to 3, it's still a quite bad situation for me, just due to what is going on with the prize exchange, because Screamtail will always be able to finish the game at this point for him. I'll say one thing though is that if he does knock out Gardevoir, it's actually kind of good for me that now Fez, I put that Bravery Charm on, because he can no longer go for Screamtail because he's down what I'm going to assume is just 1 copy of Bravery Charm. While yes, I play 2 copies of Bravery Charm in my deck, I'm really assuming that most people are not going to be playing 2 copies of the card, as is a little bit more of like a rogue choice to beat the Goldangos in the metagame. So here Rowan's just trying to figure out what's his best play. He promoted Curlia here because 20 damage I think doesn't really matter. Also, he can just evolve because he's actually 1 more Gardevoir, so he makes his decision. Now he's just trying to figure out, like, do I knock out Ian's active? Do I knock out Monkey? Like, what do I do in this position to set myself up for victory? And here he decides to do Monkey, which I think is quite solid, as it allows him to be safe from me getting double Monkey this following turn and maybe setting up like a big knockout. Here what you can do is just pile damage on my Gardevoir to set up Screamtail on the following turn, which is actually really going for me previously. I know I said that he could not, but it's actually something that he can now do, which is quite awkward because it puts me at 130, which was 180. I can only heal up to 210. So it's basically just checkmate at this point of the game, where there really isn't much I can do from this point forward. So here I'm trying to figure out how can I ever win, and if I really decide that, okay, I have to pretend Screamtail is prized. That's my one out here, is Screamtail has to be prized. And here I'm thinking I need to find an attacker that is safe in the Gardevoir, which I don't really have any, which is a problem. Since now that Rowan has 3 Monkey, I can no longer go for something like Evolve Bench into Gardevoir, attach Dark to Monkey, move 30, and then attack. I just don't have I still have too much damage onto my active to feel comfortable. Or excuse me, I can do that, but I just end up not finding Gardevoir here, as Gardevoir would set me up to feel comfortable into that. Here I'm just trying to figure out like what is my best play, and here it's really just coming down to the conclusion of I need to somehow get lucky. I'm not really sure how at this point I can realistically win this game, because I just do not have any monkeys. So here I decided just maybe like I can go Frillish into like another monkey, set up Gardevoir is like my thought process here, and Screamtail just has to be the last prize, which I don't think is like really like a fantastic play for me. Like the situation is quite awful, but this is like the only thing that I can find is maybe like I promote Fez takes damage, and I can do something. But I think it just didn't really matter from this point what I did, and now I just lose to Screamtail. So this game, I think the big thing really to take away from it is the way I made a comeback with the Devo play. Really just try and think about like how you're able to play from behind and create weird situations to win. Usually what I found with Gardevoir and a lot of decks is confusion is a really good way to get lucky in these really bad situations. So always just try to think about like something like confusion, or just your opponent having really bad prizes or really bad hand can win you the game. Interested in learning more? I have other videos on the channel about Gardevoir EX Jellicent. And if you want to learn more about the deck, check out my Metafy guide where I posted about the deck. And if you want to see more things from me, check out my YouTube channel, everything else here, and my Substack, my Metafy in the comments. Next time, Ian out. Peace.